Hey party people, I'm Pastor Lia Scholl from Wake Forest Baptist Church. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with me today. Today we're still in our sermon series, Unraveled, Finding God When Things Unravel. And today's sermon is based on Mark chapter 5, the story of the Gerasene demoniac. The sermon title is The Unraveling of the Mind. And we're talking about depression and anxiety. So be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. I don't know exactly when it started, but she hadn't been really well for a while. She'd been through a nasty marriage and a nastier divorce. She had hidden out for several months in a cabin in the woods, and a routine doctor's visit turned into a traumatic event. There were medicinal failures and remedies that just didn't work. And then the pandemic happened. There was suicidal ideation. That's when you think about dying by suicide. Or maybe a better way of saying it is that part of you wants to die and makes a plan for it to happen. There was depression, anxiety, isolating and hiding out. There were many missed phone calls, unreturned texts. She just kind of disappeared. And when she did reappear, she was weepy, angry, and often trying so hard to figure out what to do. But the systems failed her. It was hard to find a therapist. It was even harder to get an appointment. A doctor mentioned that thyroid testing was in order, but getting an appointment for that took 2 months. And then the test came back indeterminate, which means she had to wait another several months to get more tests. And even at that, there was no clear answer. She was doing everything right, everything that the professionals told her to do. She did what her therapist said. She was exercising. She was eating right. And still, she wasn't getting better. So who is she? She is one of the strongest women I know. A dear friend of nearly 15 years who has dealt with nearly everything you can imagine, and nothing has killed her yet. But this bout of depression and anxiety very nearly did. And unfortunately, her situation is not unusual. Many of us struggle with mental health issues. There are so many signs that you might have depression or anxiety. Those symptoms can be things like changes in appetite, changes in weight, loss of interest in things you used to enjoy, hearing things that aren't there, seeing things that aren't there, feeling unsure if things are real or not. Our brains can play tricks on us. We can have a lack of energy, increased energy, inability to concentrate, alcohol or drug use or abuse, self-harm, skipping meals, overeating, overwhelming focus on weight and appearance, feeling worthless, uncontrollable thoughts, guilt, paranoia, nightmares, bullying, not getting enough sleep, sleeping too much, risky sexual behavior, overwhelming sadness, losing friends, having unhealthy relationships, friendships, unexplained anger or rage, isolation, feeling detached from our bodies, feeling out of control, thoughts of self-harm, cutting, thoughts of suicide, plans of suicide, abuse, sexual assault, death of a loved one. All of these things can be symptoms of depression and or anxiety. There are so many ways that mental health issues play out in our lives. And for so many of us, the World Health Organization estimates that 300 million people suffer from depression every year. Studies show that about 10% of individuals from the age of 19 to 25 suffer from depression, and as many as 80% of women experience postpartum depression or the baby blues. Depression is the world's leading cause of disability. So let's take a look at our Bible story today. We see the one who calmed the sea in Mark chapter 4 meet a man who is the very opposite of calm, a man who night and day among the tombs and in the hills he would cry out and cut himself with stones. And just as Jesus stilled the storm, so he stills this man by letting his demons go into a herd of pigs who jump off cliffs and drown. Let me get one thing clear. I do not believe that mental illness is demon possession. I do believe we have a better understanding of the mind today and a better understanding of the unraveling of the mind than we did in the first century. And even more, I believe that the first century othered people who were mentally ill, and calling them demon possessed was a way to do that. Unfortunately, I think we still other folks who are mentally ill, but we do it in more sophisticated ways. People with mental illness still face the same prejudices. We just call them fancier names. And we still subject folks with mental illness to isolation, to imprisonment, to casting them out of community, and basically rendering them invisible. And I think that those of us who suffer from depression and anxiety and the myriad other mental health issues, I think we deserve better, don't you? If Legion was suffering from mental illness, what can we learn from how Jesus approached him? First, Jesus saw him. He wasn't invisible. Jesus really saw him. And Jesus didn't see him as a crazy person. Jesus saw him as a person. What do you do when you see a person? You ask his name. Second, Jesus listened. Legion at one point begs Jesus not to send him away, and so Jesus does not. Unlike the other folks in Legion's life, who likely sent him to the place that he was, that sort of cemetery that he was, they sent him away to that spot instead of allowing him to be safer at home. When the neighborhood folks saw that Legion had been healed, or as the text says, he was brought into his right mind, they were upset with Jesus. You see, systems get built around someone whose behavior is difficult. The system built here was one of chains and beatings, and people hate it when systems break down. It makes them fearful, and it often makes them scapegoat others. That's why the people asked Jesus to leave after he healed Legion. As he's leaving, Legion asked Jesus to take him with the disciples. But Jesus, I think, understood fully the needs of folks with mental illness. And he probably knew that his way, Jesus' way and the disciples' way, was not safe for a trauma survivor. And trust and believe that Legion was a trauma survivor. What Legion likely needed was routine, comfort, and community. Jesus was headed to Jerusalem. He wasn't going to get routine, comfort, and community. Might get community, but not routine and comfort along with the disciples. Perhaps our responses to people with mental health issues should be similar. That we should see people as people who are going through a rough spot. We should get to know them, help them face what's going on. Maybe we should provide routine, comfort, and community to folks suffering from mental health issues. I crowdsourced from some of my friends friends who deal with depression and anxiety about what they would like from others when they are suffering. I want to start out with their list of things not to do, the don'ts. They said, don't ask what to do, just do it. Don't judge. Don't tell someone to look on the bright side or make light of their situation. Don't tell someone they're selfish or shame them about feeling bad. Don't tell them to exercise. Exercise is not a panacea for all depression. Don't offer words like, you could just pray about it, or you just need to trust God. And most of all, don't assume. Don't assume you know. Don't assume that you're an expert. And don't make assumptions about the other person's suffering. Depression and anxiety are very personal, and as such, each person is different. Here's the list of things they did say do. Do invite your friend to do something you enjoy together, whether dinner or play or even going outdoors. Do reach out, and any contact will do. Email, cards, voicemails, texts. Just stay connected in whatever way you can. Do honor the suffering person's feelings. One friend said, "Give me space to be sad." Do listen without judgment and without fear, even if the person is feeling suicidal ideation. That's a hard one, y'all, but you still have to do it. Do see a person as a person to be loved, not a problem to be solved. Do be a presence. One friend said, "Come over and sit in my living room and watch TV. I want to be alone, but not by myself." Do help with getting an appointment, even finding counselors who will accept a person's insurance, and then maybe even go with them and wait while they go into their first appointment. Do clean, order food, take out the trash, and don't wait to be asked. Do make a cup of tea and have a seat. And do ask what they need and do it. And friend, as usual, if you are suffering of depression or anxiety or any other mental health emergency or just a chronic thing, do reach out to me. I have walked the road of depression and anxiety, and I have walked along friends and loved ones who have walked it too. There is hope. Things can and do get better. Unfortunately, the problem with our text this morning is that once Legion met Jesus, he was totally healed. As the text said, like I said, he was back in his right mind. Depression and anxiety are usually not healed magically. They take time, and recovery can often be up and down and back and forth and all around and all over the place. It's a process, and often a lengthy one. But things can and do get better. I love you, and I love being your pastor.